On the show today, a winter dessert that's tastier and more comforting than a bread and butter pudding, Pudding Diplomat.
Perfect dessert for a winter evening.
A Fruit Terrine that tastes as good as it looks. And Eric visits Champagne in France, cooking a dessert with passion fruit and pasta, serving it to champagne growers.
We're not the kind of people who're just going to go lovely, lovely.
In the series so far, we've seen Carême rise from an orphan on the streets of revolutionary Paris to cooking for the Emperor Napoleon. By 1812, France had spread its tentacles across the continent. A disgruntled Europe, Spain, Sweden, Austria and Portugal formed an alliance with Britain and Russia to repel Napoleon. The great emperor and general decided to invade Russia. The Russians fought hard and ruthlessly. As winter set in, they retreated across the vast country, destroying crops and infrastructure. Starving and freezing, Napoleon lost 400,000 men. And even though he took Moscow, his position was weakened. Now the Allies launched an attack on all fronts, and Napoleon was pushed back to Paris.
For Napoleon, it was the beginning of the end. By 1814, the Russians were marching through Paris, aided by Tsar Alexander, the first invading conqueror to enter the city in 400 years.
The Russian army marched through the streets of Paris. Ironically, Parisians lined the streets to cheer them, delighted the warmonger Napoleon had been defeated. Everyone had lost a son, a father or a husband. And Carême was no different. He'd lost 40 chefs on the front line and joined the throng.
So as a Frenchman, I was always brought up in the impression that Napoleon was the great.
He's a great general, he's a great statesman. This period, 1814, the campaign of France, is possibly his greatest moment as a general. He manages to be all around Paris and in the Champagne region. He manages to keep the Allied forces at bay. Amazingly, with very few troops, lots of people dying all over the place, but he keeps it together. So it's quite extraordinary that in the end he loses. Alexander is delighted, not only because he's getting one over on his arch rival, he's finally in a position of superiority with respect to Napoleon. So when he comes into Paris, he's like, oh yes, this is great. I can now be the magnanimous ruler. I can now say to Napoleon, yes, it's all right, I will forgive you. Talleyrand has been quite significantly working against Napoleon for the last 6 years because of basically Napoleon treated him so badly. Talleyrand obviously wants Alexander in his house, so he says to Alexander, oh, don't go to the Élysée Palace that's possibly been set up with mines, so you come to my house. Alexander, of course, knows that Talleyrand has one of the best chefs in Europe. Of course, Carême is rushed off his feet, feeding the whole of Europe that counts at that point. And it's Talleyrand that deals with Alexander. They kind of decide the fate of Napoleon and they decide the fate of France together.
So bizarrely, after all of that, it wasn't the end of Napoleon after all.
Well, no, it's quite unusual, really. Yes, Alexander decides to be gentle with Napoleon and demands that they send him not very far away. They sent him to the island of Elba, just off the west coast of Italy.
It was a decision that would come back to haunt the Allied forces. Carême cooked for the Tsar and his generals for those 10 crucial days of diplomacy. Talleyrand insisted that he design menus that were suitable for the Russian palate.
This is the classic Carême recipe. And you can see why his Russian customers will have loved this one. It's got all the perfect ingredients. I probably would like to compare it to a bread and butter pudding, but it's not a bread and butter pudding, it's called Pudding Diplomat.
Whisk all eggs and add custard and then vanilla sugar. Then add the milk to make a crème anglaise.
Keep that aside. And here on my rack, I got some little disc of toasted brioche. So I use a cutter and I cut the slices and I just put them under the oven grill to toast. And this is my serving dish. Just classic little ramekins, and they've been brushed with some melted butter. So melted butter on a toasted brioche, and this going inside on the bottom of our ramekins. And you have to use brioche. Don't start using white bread because you're just going to lose the whole idea of the recipe. And you will end up with a bread and butter pudding. And here, in this dish, I got some glacé fruit, and they've been soaked for an hour in dark rum. So they're lovely and juicy. I'm just gonna put a layer of the glacé fruit on top of the brioche and put some of the rum juice as well with it. You know, 200 years ago, glacé, the fruit, was a way to preserve them. So they used to have a big pile of them as a centerpiece on the table. So they used to have like mountains of mini oranges and pears and multicolored. They really loved the glacé fruit in those days. So I'm putting another layer of brioche, pressing it down well. Egg mixture inside a jug. So I just want to fill it till I cover my second layer of bread, of brioche. And because of the eggs, they will rise a little bit in the oven. They won't turn up like a souffle, but they will rise a little bit. So a little bit more glacé fruit. And the funnel disc, just a bit more bread, but I'm going to cut them in half. And just put them like this. And I'm just going to top it up with the rest of the egg mixture, making sure the top layer as well get coated, so that will get a nice color in the oven. And I'm going to sprinkle a bit of dark demerara sugar on the top to give it a bit of a crust. That's going to go in a kind of medium oven, 150 degrees, probably for 30 up to 40, 45 minutes, depending on the oven. We want a nice color on the top and to see them fluff it up. So, okay, so they're going to cook in the bain-marie. So this very clever device here. So I'm just going to fill this tray with water. I mean, if you haven't got that set up, you can just put it on a deep baking trays. So I just put them back in like this. That's perfect. Be really taking care of that.
Put them in the oven at 170 degrees for an hour, and they should rise.
I did say they will rise, not like soufflé, but they could almost be soufflés. So let me just lift them up from they look absolutely amazing. And normally I will serve this with maybe like a crème anglaise with a bit flavored with a bit of rum as well to match the flavor of the glacé fruit we have inside. And that's perfect. You can feel the top is nice and crunchy. You got all this lovely glacé fruit and the lovely smell of the rum. Perfect dessert for a winter evening. Perfect, perfect. Pudding Diplomat.
The Russians had invaded Paris and had exiled Napoleon. Carême could now add the conquering Tsar Alexander to the list of great men he had cooked for. And the Russian influence was being felt all over the city.
The Russian invaders were everywhere, bringing with them their culture and their language, some of which stuck. The word bistro comes from the Russian soldiers sitting in the restaurant shouting at the waiters, "Bistro, bistro," meaning faster, faster.
Having deposed of Napoleon, the Allies, led by the Russians, left Paris. They travelled to the Champagne region for a huge ceremony to mark their victory.
The plan for the Victory Festival, which took place here in this valley, were vast.
There was a march past of 150 squadrons of Russian cavalry, 150 battalions of infantry, and hundreds of officers. There were emperors, dukes and kings, including Wellington and, of course, Tsar Alexander himself.
And it's here on the top of the Mont des Mai when all the VIP were standing watching these amazing military displays. And to cook for all these peoples, it was only one man, Carême.
Eric is visiting the village of Vatous and is being shown where Carême cooked for the generals by local historian Monsieur Renaud.
So Monsieur Renaud just explained to me what's happened exactly here at what is called now Maison Poisson, and that's where all the celebration took place.
Tents and marquees were erected here to cater for the Tsar and his generals. Carême had to cook for 3 nights in a row, for 300 guests a night. It was a huge, extravagant event that included 50 different desserts.
Il fallait bien qu'il se restaure et qu'il puisse.
Well, it wasn't just a small celebration. It was 7 days of partying and crazy food, 1,200 bottles of champagne. So it was a big coup for this area. Those big celebrities have to stay somewhere, and this is where they stay. They don't know exactly which room they used, and this is where as well all their staff were staying. And it's a big chance that Carême would have been staying somewhere in that building as well.
Cooking outdoors is still a challenge. One way Carême preserved his desserts was to present them in jelly. No mean feat in those days.
Okay, this next dessert is quite an unusual one. Usually when you heard the word terrine, you always think about something savory, like a foie gras or a pork terrine. But this one is a sweet terrine, obviously. We're going to do a Montbazillac and a red fruit terrines. What we're going to do is we're actually going to create a jelly out of the Montbazillac. So at the end, you will get that terrine shape, that oblong shape, and all the red berries are going to be set in this delicious, sweet, winey jelly. So I'm going to put the wine in this glass. So the Montbazillac is very easy to find. I mean, supermarkets store it, or any good wine merchant. It's actually a wine from the Dordogne area of France. And if you can't find it, just get another sweet wine.
Soak the gelatin, gently heat it, and then whisk into the wine sauce.
Another little ingredient, just a little squeeze of lemon juice. And I'm just going to scrape a bit of vanilla seed as well inside. And you will notice there's no sugar. The sugar will just come from the berries. So the jelly is actually ready. So I'm going to use one of a silicone mold. Scattered a few strawberries, some whole ones, some sliced in half. I'm going to put raspberries in between them. I'm going to put some whole grape of red currant. I think they do look very nice, straight on a stalk like that. And for colors, just squeeze a few blueberries between all the fruit. So you need to pack it up quite well, because we're going to do 2 layers. So when you want to cut the slice, you want to see those 2 perfect layers of full-on seasonal berries. So we're just going to add our Montbazillac jelly. Just cover the fruit. The whole idea to do it in 2 steps, obviously, is if we are doing it in one, all the fruit's going to start to float to the top and ruin our beautiful work.
That needs to set in the fridge for 45 minutes.
Okay, so this is all set. Beautifully clear jelly as well. Jelly were like a huge part of Carême and the gastronomy of those days. And if you think to all the trouble they used to go through, they used to have to create their own gelatin from bones. They have no fridge to set the jellies. Okay, so that's going to go back in the fridge to set for a few hours, or even better, overnight, to make sure it's set completely right to the center. Because I haven't got that much time and I want to show you at work, I did one last night. So this is one which is completely set. I'm just going to dip it in warm water. Not very hot water, because we don't want to melt the jelly completely, but just in warm water for a little while. So it's just going to come off our silicone mold nice and neat. So I think that should be enough to slightly pull aside the silicone before turn it over on your tray. And that should be, and just release, and look at this. Min, would be the perfect dessert for a summer evening or a summer lunch, al fresco lunch. A Muscat Jelly with red berries.
One of the advantages of holding the festival here in Champagne is that lots of the bubbly stuff flowed, and hopefully that hasn't changed.
I'm here in the middle of the Champagne region looking at the Chardonnay grape being picked. And actually Champagne was the main reason why this festival took place. They wanted champagne and they wanted a lot of it. And actually they did get it. They forced the champagne houses to hand up all their precious stock free of charge.
The Russians stormed into the champagne houses, demanding thousands of free bottles. They even broke into the miles of caves that lay under the ground in Champagne, and many of the houses ferment their wine.
Is it the harvest time now?
It is the harvest time. Usually September, late September is when the grapes ripen.
So why champagne in Champagne?
Well, as we say, there's only Champagne from Champagne, and it's Champagne is a unique region because of the combination of weather. The other element is actually the soil. We can see it here. This rock, this is chalk, as you can see. You know,
It's very white.
Absolutely, and it's a very limestoney, the most limestoney soil, and it tends to make wine that are very elegant, very pure, with a lot of acidity, and this is a key element for the balance in the Champagne.
So once the grapes are mixed with alcohol, the real work begins down in the caves. The bottles are left to ferment for years and are hand-turned.
And now here, what's happening with the, the bottles suddenly are, upside down.
Well, towards the end of the process, we need to eliminate the dead yeast that have made the second fermentation possible, that have made the champagne what it is, with the bubbles. You can see all the sediment is now close to the cap, and it can be eliminated quite easily. Freeze the neck of the bottle, open the cap, and then the champagne is clear.
Yeah.
So we've seen the process, and it takes 10 years. And finally, this is the result. I'm sure you would like to taste the glass.
Well, I think it would be rude not to be honest.
Here we go.
It's not all drinking champagne for Eric. He has been asked to create a dessert to go with the latest vintage.
You get some candied citrus.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
The directors of Ruinart have come from all over Europe to host the dinner down in the caves.
And the theme, of course, of the dessert have to be champagne. So I'm making a passion fruit ravioli with a Champagne Sabayon.
For the center of the ravioli, mix eggs and sugar together.
The Ruinart decided to come down to the cellar. They're going to have a fantastic dinner, and I'm cooking the dessert for them. I'm using passion fruit. I'm cooking for champagne growers in a 2 Michelin-star restaurant. I'm not going to do something boring.
Add the passion fruit puree and place the mixture over boiling water.
It's going to thicken very quickly, so keep an eye on it. You can't just leave it on its own.
Stir constantly until it thickens.
That's going to be the nice center of our ravioli.
Add butter and mix it in. Pour out the passion fruit mixture, spread it onto a tray to help it cool. Leave it in the fridge.
Now we need to make our pasta dough.
Sift flour and sugar.
A bit of dried yeast. We don't really want the dough to rise. The dried yeast is actually there to give us a nice taste.
Add butter
Some salt.
and some eggs.
So gently I'm going to mix it together. Add a few drops of water to it till I get the right consistency.
Grate lemon zest. Combine.
Okay, we've got a beautiful dough here. You can see it's nice and smooth. That's going to have to go in the fridge for a couple of hours just to rest.
Roll out the dough.
Okay, it needs to be thin, but not too thin. Obviously, you want to hold the passion fruit curd inside.
Cut circles. Place them on a baking tray and brush with egg yolk.
Curd's doing. You can see it's set now.
Spoon the passion fruit curd into the middle. Place on another disc, seal it, and brush on more egg yolk.
Right, that's going to go in the oven. Temperature of 180
probably 15 minutes till it's lovely and golden brown. Okay, final step, the Sabayon. So we got egg yolks here.
Pour in the champagne. Mix thoroughly. Place on a bain-marie and keep stirring with your whisk.
Now you can see the texture. That's perfect. And you don't hang around, because if you hang around too long, it's just going to collapse and it's going to be too flat.
You know the ravioli is done when it's golden brown.
And I got some nice berries.
Spoon the Champagne Sabayon over the berries.
And the final touch.
Time for the blowtorch.
Here we are to impress our guests tonight. Passion fruit ravioli with a Champagne Sabayon.
The heads of department from Ruinart want to test their new vintage with Eric's dessert.
Those guys are like the top executive for the champagne house. Obviously, they know their wine. They definitely know their food. So I really want to please them, and they're not the kind of people who are just going to go lovely, lovely. If they don't like it, I'm sure they will tell me.
It's very difficult to find, usually a pairing between the Grenache and the champagne because, the sugar. And in this case, you have a perfect balance between the acidity of the fruit, the roundness. It's perfect. Really, a very good pairing.
Fruit, in my opinion, was really a good choice.